please.
Well, 6 o'clock or 6:01, why don't we call the meeting to order?
Good.
Did I hear earlier that maybe you were volunteering to take minutes?
Yeah, I can take minutes.
That would be wonderful.
So I had them open, but it didn't look like I could edit these ones. Like, do you want me to just take notes like on a Google Doc?
Yeah,
Or-
that would, I mean, whatever format. I don't
Okay,
think it
I'll share them out. Like, if I get everybody's
really
email, I think I have it.
Thank
I
you.
can send out the Google Doc.
Everyone's email should be in the emails I send out. So.
Okay, so yeah, I'll just share this out after our meeting.
Okay. So then, roll call. So this is actually fun because it's more than just Mike and I. So Andrea, right?
Yep.
And how do you pronounce your last name?
DeYoung.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Okay.
What kind of name is DeYoung?
It is Dutch.
Oh. Okay.
Mike, you're here.
I'm here.
John. Do you go by John or Jonathan?
John is fine.
John, okay.
Might I get your number?
Sure.
Dutch. Are you like
Myself.
third generation?
I
When do
think
you
that
have
more-
relatives that were in the Netherlands?
Going, I don't know exactly. I would say probably fourth, fifth generation.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Like my mom's side's Polish, and I think I'm fourth generation on that side. But with my dad's, I'm not sure.
So the next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and the flag is just outside our room. And in a couple months, we will be pledging into the darkness.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Then we have approval of the agenda.
So
So,
take a look at it.
and actually, I would like to add an item, because I should have added this, but an introduction of new members so that we can
Yeah.
understand who we all have here tonight. So we can put that after correspondence and before the director's report. Introduction of new members.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Anyone support?
Right.
Okay.
You weren't here. Oh yeah, you can. Sorry. I think you're gonna approve the minutes. You can't.
Oh, well.
No, you can. You cannot. You can approve the agenda, but not the minutes.
Well, technically, anyone can. It's,
If they weren't here, you can't.
yes. I mean, they have to vote for it. But it usually is customary that people who attended
Yeah.
will approve minutes. So we have a motion and support to approve the agenda. Are there any other additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so speaking of minutes, we have 3 sets of meeting minutes from the last 3 meetings that we actually held. We did not have a May, July, or September meeting, so pretty much every other month right now. They're very brief because I think the longest meeting was 13 minutes. So Mike, do you want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah, since I was here. No, I'm gonna make a motion to approve. No, is that where I'm? Yeah, the minutes. I approve. I make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, from the April 4th,
April 4, June
June
6th,
6th,
August 1.
and August 1st.
Yeah.
I will support that motion. Any discussion or corrections noted in the minutes? And this is where the two of you have really not much to say.
Yeah.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. We have no public here. I have no correspondence to report. So that takes us to introduction of new members. So I guess if I could just ask each of you to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to sign that piece of paper and say, I'd like to help out.
Well, I'm Andrea DeYoung. I am a second grade teacher. I recently got my master's degree in technology, and that's what this kind of came to me about the PEG. I didn't know that we had like a Manistee place where you could watch like board meetings and stuff, and so I wanted to get more involved with that and really make sure like the community knows about this, because I feel like it's underrepresented right now, because I didn't even know about it, and I'm pretty involved in the community, so I want to get more people involved with that.
And did you know that we are hosted right here in this building? It's where all of our equipment is.
Nope, I did not know that either. No.
There's
Learning
actually
a lot more.
There's
so.
a long history between the school district and this commission, although it has waned a lot over the last, well, probably 10 years as things were cut, because there used to be a video production class at the high school level. Then there was equipment sharing. They would use equipment that we purchased for them to train with, and that doesn't exist anymore. As you know, a lot of changes have happened. So, but yeah, I'm in a closet down in the basement.
Oh, okay.
Okay, John.
Yes, yeah, Jonathan Hansen. So I got a diploma in computer repair, so I have some understanding of how that works. And then I've done filming of quite a few church services in the past,
Okay.
so I have some understanding of what is involved there.
Great. Okay.
So how did you and I'm trying to figure out,
Well, I don't know if, I'm assuming I met you years ago,
yeah,
but I definitely knew your past, and I see your daughter from time to time. We have little chats. So I don't know if she passes that information along. She even reminded me that back when we were, what, first or second grade or something like that, she remembered me.
you're kidding.
Yeah, so she has quite a memory compared to mine.
So, but again, how would you know her and how would,
Oh, how?
yeah,
That's a very good question. I know that Sandy, right,
my ex,
has had, she had a connection with my folks for quite a few years.
okay.
And then, of course, then I knew Kara probably through that. Yeah.
Huh. Oh,
And I assume we met at some point. Maybe we didn't. I don't recall. It would have been a while back. I don't know if it was 96 or before.
like I go, well, there it is, there's it.
I know your name.
Yeah.
So I assumed we had met.
I would guess.
So, to kind of balance things out, probably makes sense for us to introduce ourselves. So, Mike, why don't you tell a bit about yourself and how long you've been involved in this
Well, I've been involved in
organization?
Access TV a long time, back when we used VHS, and everything was VHS. You ever seen a VHS camera?
And like huge
Yeah,
things.
they're big. And then I ended up jumping way ahead. I took some television courses at CMU, and there we used 3/4 inch deck. We actually had a deck, like a suitcase. It was really heavy. And you'd go out and you'd do something, and I didn't get a piece of paper or anything, but I took 2 advanced courses in television production. That was leaning more towards like news. Hardly anything like what I do. I just go to record things. I recorded at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church for many years, First Baptist, and I go to Trinity. I used to go to Trinity for special events and put them on TV. And I've been here long enough to see the commission come and go, different people come and go. And for a while we had some people on the commission who did their best to get rid of me. And I don't know if any of you were ever aware of some of that, but it was vicious. And my wife and I, Rebecca is the one, went to Mount Pleasant, start over Owasso for several years because we were down there to give comfort to her mother who was dying of cancer. And then when she died, we came back, and I was involved in much television over there. I did most of the program, and I have told people, the same people in every community, like Owasso. See, I'm losing my memory, man. And you have a person in one community, and you go to another community, and there they are. They got a different name, they look different, but it's the same thing. You just we lived in Mount Pleasant for quite a while, and when her mother died, one night in bed I asked Becky, we had a lot of rents, let me tell you. I said, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? She said, Manistee, and I said, me too. And the next day, because she had lived here for a while, I called a friend of mine who I knew was involved in things, and he said, well, my dad has a house for rent. And we lived there for 4 years, and now we have our own house. We live right by the Fider Township Fire Department.
Right next door.
Literally. Maybe as far as that hole, maybe a few more feet. But this man came to my house once and rescued me. I think what I was having is something wrong. It's interesting what happens with a body is because a couple days later I was riding my bicycle and I went by and I waved at you, hey. And
Bounce
then,
back.
Huh?
Bounce straight back.
And then about a year ago, my daughter's husband, sheriff, 35, renal diabetic, was having something going on, and Kara called me. I went over there. I was helping him get dressed, and Kara was helping him to get dressed, and he's dead. Those guys worked on with that machine for a half hour. I guess it's a half hour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man, that had really, really pushed
So
in.
you're saying you were gone for half an hour?
No, they put him on that machine. What is that called?
Oh. Okay.
He was dead. It's really tough to see somebody who was a family member die right in front of you. Now she's got a new boyfriend who does not like me. He won't talk to me. He's a Muslim. Yeah.
So, I'm Barry Lind. I've been on this commission for, I don't even know how many years now. Probably about 7, I'd say.
I was gonna say 7.
Okay. So I was invited to join by the former chair at that time, was Mark Sandstead. And I have a background in technology, so even though my current job as airport director doesn't really involve that, but before we moved here, I had worked for a couple different software companies out in Silicon Valley. So this was interesting, and also just trying to. I also have an interest in kind of local government and those types of things. I was on the DDA board for 10 years or so. A couple other commissions and boards, library, etc. over the years. So about 3 years ago now, prior to so probably about 5 years ago, I took over as chair, and then about 3 years ago, our previous director retired. So I've been working as, I used to say interim director, but after 3 years, I'm not sure that really makes sense anymore. Basically, I'm keeping the lights on while my goal has been trying to build, and as I sent out last week this blueprinting, so we were going through this process. We as a commission first met about it in late 19, and then with COVID in 2020 and not even being able to meet, and it basically has just been on the back burner. We lost half of our commission members over that period as well, so we've really been looking to have more than just Mike and I to try to figure out how to move the organization forward.
What is the size of the commission to be?
We are currently, per our bylaws, set at 5, so we have still 1 vacancy.
Okay.
When I started, we were 7, and then we shrunk that. Again, historically, and COVID has changed everything, and just trying to figure out, dust things off, and figure out how to move forward. But prior to COVID, we received funding from, going back when I started on the commission, we received funding from 4 sources primarily. The city funded us to the amount of about $25,000 a year. Filer Township, $5,000 a year. Manistee Township, $3,500 a year. And then we also get a fee collected from charter subscribers. I think it's 15 cents per month on their bills, and that used to equate to about $6,000, but that is decreasing every year, so we're probably in the $4,500 range right now that brings in. So that was our revenue, and at that time we were paying our former director a salary of about $40,000 a year to basically operate the station. The city, in their cost-cutting process over time, stopped funding us. So that basically brought us down to about $15,000 a year in revenue. So our previous director cut his salary down to $10,000 a year. I've been doing it unpaid for the last 3 years. And during COVID, when everything was up in the air, both Filer and Manistee Township cut our funding. So as of right now, the only revenue stream we have is the charter income stream. But for the last 3 years, we've spent maybe $200 a year. So we've actually built up a good fund balance so that we have money in the bank to do things with and figure out as we go forward. And kind of going from my introduction just into kind of organizational history as well, so which is what I was going to do in my director's report. So I'll I guess I'll stop there. Mark, do you just want to give your role as a city liaison?
Sure. I'm Mark Cameron. I'm, as Barry said, the liaison for the city. I'm new to this whole process. I'm post-COVID enrollment here. So basically, my role is just going back and forth and minutes and information back and forth with Heather and postings and if there's a meeting cancellation or stuff like that. So I'm here to help anything between the group and the city.
So basically, every commission has someone that's kind of assigned
from the city.
To them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And actually, to that extent, Mark, I'm going to make this request that going forward, if we could get financial reports again,
You got it.
that would be, I think, good for us to see. So then, I guess going back, then moving to my director's report. So let's talk about kind of what we currently do. So we have, as director, I maintain our channel on Charter, which technically we actually have 2 channels, 198 and 199, but we just run the same content on both. We don't utilize the fact that we have these 2 channels. Historically, going way back, we were Channel 2.
Channel 2.
Which was much more visible. Now we're buried down in, now that there are practically 1,000 channels, we're buried in that mix. So that has significantly hidden us through that medium. The other thing that has happened is with the dawn of streaming services and all these other types of technology, just the people that subscribe to traditional cable packages are also dwindling, which is then reflected in our revenue from Charter. So that is kind of has significantly diminished public use or consumption of our content through that means.
Yeah.
Do we know how many average watchers we have?
We don't. We used to, or the city used to get a report, and I received a couple of them, but Charter stopped doing that. And I think, quite frankly, Charter doesn't want people to know, because from Charter's perspective, they'd rather free those channels up and use them for other content. It's kind of this legacy that they're obligated to support community access television, and they question whether it makes sense for them to be obligated to do that. We obviously need to think about what that means and what other avenues there are for us to accomplish what we do, understanding how technology is changing the world. That segues me then into the second part is, so going back 7 years, when I started, the Charter channel was the only thing we had. We then, shortly after I started, created a website, and the website really didn't have much content other than kind of talked about the organization and kind of showed the schedule and things like that. the website got revamped, and then for the first time started hosting all of our content. So the website is actually, if you want to look at a city council meeting from 4 years ago, it's there. The website is really just kind of our branded front end. All of the content is actually hosted on YouTube. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you can also see everything. You don't have to go through our website. But the website is a mechanism that kind of is our branding, although it is now dated and could use some updates, as a lot of things.
So would you prefer people to go on the website, or could they just go to the YouTube channel to get access there?
From my perspective, whatever they're most comfortable with.
Okay.
YouTube is all about making it convenient for people to consume media. So you can subscribe, you can get
How many
notifications.
subscribers do we have?
I don't know the answer to that off the top
That's
of my
just the
head.
question I had, because I feel like if people knew about it, like subscribe to it on
Right.
YouTube, like then
Right.
it would, more people would go and view it.
Yes. Well, as we get talking the blueprint, I'll give
Okay.
you some personal opinions I have on kind of that. But yes, when no one knows you exist, it's a challenge. Then the question becomes, even if they do know you exist, is the information you have in the right format that they want to consume it? And those are different questions.
Is this a 24-hour channel?
Yes and no.
Okay.
We do run content 24 hours, but it is on a 12-hour schedule, so it repeats every 12 hours.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you have trouble getting material sometimes. I imagine that can be a challenge.
Well, now that the city is basically encouraging / requiring all commissions to record their meetings, I actually sometimes I get behind, especially if you get a 3-hour Parks Commission meeting or something, random like that. That can take up a good chunk of time. So I really I've not struggled yet to fill 12 hours on a weekly basis. And that's the other thing is every week I change the content. Although some of it, for example, Manistee Township and Filer Township, their meetings, they meet once a month. Those meetings run for the entire month. And that's, again, historic. When they were funding us, that's the least we can do is make sure that their most current meeting is always available.
Yeah. Are you saying that the material is available then on the site, the YouTube, and the channel?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the channel will have the most current version of something running, and then the YouTube and the website basically have that, and then there's a playlist that is the most recent, and then there's basically everything archived there.
How long, after a meeting, would it be posted on the website or YouTube?
There's two answers to that. My goal, once I get it, is within 24 hours. So the question is, how long does it take for me to get it from
the person?
From others?
Okay.
So currently, I personally record Filer and Manistee Township. So those I will generally put up the evening after the meeting, so within a few hours. The DDA meeting, because it's not held at City Hall, needs someone with a camera to record it. I also record that, and since that's a morning meeting, I usually do it in the end of the day after work. For other city commission meetings, which are held in council chambers, for the important ones, I'll usually get them, Heather often sends me the actual city council meetings that evening after the meeting. Other commission meetings, I usually get within a day or two.
My question has been for some time, being the city does not support us financially, why do we care what they want?
Well, we are a city commission, so therefore city council is our boss in
Right.
that sense. So we care for that reason. They do provide all of basically our bookkeeping and kind of all of our money services come out of the city. So we are getting services from them. So I'll then use that as kind of a segue into, so I mentioned historically pre-COVID, Filer funded us $5,000, Manistee Township $3,500, and the city basically these value-added services. In recognition of kind of those funding levels, Filer's meeting is basically on at what I would consider the prime spot, 8 p.m. So kind of, 8 p.m. in the evening. Manistee Township, a little bit lesser contribution, is at 6 p.m. And then City of Manistee is at 10 p.m. So I kind of, whether those are the right, optimum times, as opposed to 3 in the afternoon, which I consider a lower quality time. Because again, if you think about these running every 12 hours, 3 in the afternoon, 3 in the morning are, the 3 in the morning is probably not going to get ever anybody. 3 in the afternoon is not an optimum time. So evening is when people are available, but then that translates into early morning, which people wake up early, they're flipping through, so that's kind of how I've tried to prioritize people based on what they historically gave. I think that Filer and Manistee Township would consider contributing again if we asked, but we haven't had a compelling plan as to how we would use money, and therefore that ask hasn't happened at this point. Both of their fiscal years are spring to summer, so over the next couple months we can have that discussion as to whether we want to approach them for funding again.
Odd question. Does the function of this company, if you will, does that affect the property taxes? As far as how much is funded to it, would that either raise or lower individual taxes?
Well, for Filer and Manistee Township, those funds come out of their general fund. So, and their general funds are basically mostly coming from property taxes. So, I don't know if we could say we're directly causing them to be higher, but that those funds would be supporting us. Although, and I'll make a caveat here, and this is some of the logic around the historic contribution of the City of Manistee. So, Charter has a, what's the term that a utility has to basically provide services into an area, a franchise. So basically Charter has a franchise with the city. There's a big long contract between the city and Charter, as well as Manistee Township and Filer Township. And the city gets a revenue stream from Charter, as well as Filer and Manistee Township. So the idea has historically been that those municipalities could then take a part of their revenue stream to support community access television, and then we in turn, support capturing their meetings and their activities for the public to participate and know about. But as often happens over time, revenue is just dollars, and then it just gets looked at as, well, what's most important? And you don't look at the source of the revenue as being tied to something. You just look at all the expenses, you line them up by priority, and then you basically draw a line as to what you can support with your current budget. So that's, from my perspective, what happened with the city side of things, is that they just didn't see the value in contributing those charter-derived dollars back to this organization.
Well, I feel like COVID is a prime time, like when people want to stay home but still want to be involved and watch the meetings and everything.
Right. So, but things change over time. I mean, especially in governments, makeup of boards and commissions and councils changes. Different city manager changes things. So there are always opportunities for us to go, but I think we need a compelling case. As to
we need to know what we're, like you say, going to use the money for. We can't just say, like, oh, we want this money and have no idea. We need a plan before we go and ask for anything.
So, any more questions about, well, let me talk a little bit about our technology. So,
May we see that tonight?
there's not really much to see. We basically have a laptop that is running basically a set of software that basically is creating the schedule and streaming it out. Then the HDMI output from the laptop goes into basically a converter box, which converts it down to standard definition quality, because our channel is still standard definition. Charter has not given us the luxury of having an HD channel. That then gets converted into a digital signal in some format that predates my involvement. There's just a black box down there that has fiber on it that connects from this building to Kennedy. I'm just thinking, oh my God, with all the construction over there, that's going to someday stop working and no one's going to even know that it exists.
Oh.
Yes, but they're working on that building a lot right now.
What's his name, the head of the technology department here at MAPS?
Like the shell?
Yes. He knows it exists, so I trust that he's not just going to let it go dark, but sometimes out of sight, out of mind, too. Where it then pairs up with Charter's connection and sends it to their central office, which I think now is down in Ludington, and then magic happens and it ends up. So there's a fine trail of multiple parties that actually, and like your fire comment earlier, knock on wood, it's worked. And if it failed, I don't think there's anyone around. There's probably no one at Charter. Ken, I think, probably was involved in setting it up, so he's probably the most knowledgeable about how it works. I just know that it is there. Don't really know how it works. So if it were to fail, it would be interesting to get it working again.
I mean, I'm curious to know more of the workings. I mean, are there like 5 semi-sizable cameras that are sitting in there, or does someone volunteer to do all this filming, or do you pay someone? Is it uploaded?
So I'll just kind of go through kind of the current schedule. So let me just actually bring up what's currently. So if you go to the website, and actually I may not. I think there's a public. you go to the website, there is a menu item that is the current schedule. And the website is manisteetv.com.
What's the website? Do
So-
we have business sponsors? Because I see in here like the different levels.
We don't.
Okay.
We could, maybe should. But again, without a compelling proposition as to what
Mhm.
benefit they're receiving,
Yeah.
it's just, we have for the last 5 years been under-resourced, understaffed, and underplanned. And I basically said those in the reverse order. We first need a plan, then we need resources, and then we need staff to fulfill that plan. Without the plan, the others doesn't make sense. So, if you look at the 12 hours of programming that we have, the first hour, the Custer Boot Scooters. This is a show that is contributed to us, and it is basically country line dancing. And so this is actually a good point to mention that as a public access television station, we have an obligation to air any content that gets submitted to us, thus the public access piece of that. So if anyone submits anything, unless it, violates community standards, obscenity, et cetera, we really should be showing it. Now, I get submissions from around the country if people are just trying to get things. If it's not local, I don't consider it.
Okay.
Right.
Custer I consider local enough to include. Mike, when has working equipment, generally is in the 5 o'clock hour, and whatever he is most recently submitted to me will get shown at that time. But he's not had working equipment for a while, so I'm out of his out of his content. So 12 is Custer Boot Scooters, 1 o'clock Trinity Lutheran Manistee's weekly service. Then the rest of the afternoon is, as you see, are a variety of different city commission meetings. So city parks, zoning, harbor commission. Then we get to 6 p.m. Manistee Township. That's their slot. The Airport Authority meeting, which I record, Filer Township at 8. Then you got another city commission meeting, and then city council meeting proper at 10, and then at 11 the tree commission. So all of the city commission meetings and city council meetings are held in city council chambers, with the exception of this one and the DDA. City council chambers has a video system built in. So basically,
They just hit a button and it just starts.
It's a little bit more than that,
Yeah.
but generally whoever the city liaison is to that commission will be the one recording the meeting through the equipment.
So this person doesn't have to stand there and hold
No,
it.
there's-
So it's all just set up.
It's all set up,
Okay.
and there's basically one camera that captures
Okay.
the big area. If something's being displayed on the screen, that can be captured. And then there's also an overhead camera over a table, so if someone's got a document or a drawing or something, that can be captured. And then the system, you can switch between different angles and cameras as it's being administered. When the city stopped, so prior to that equipment being installed was when the city was funding us, and we had at that time he was a volunteer that would attend every city council meetings and with a camera and record. So that was kind of some of what we were giving back in exchange for that funding.
Okay.
When they stopped funding us, they then installed this camera system in council chambers. So that's the city council. Then there's basically the meetings I record, which are Filer, Manistee, DDA, airport. Basically, if I'm already attending a meeting, I bring the camera. So my airport meeting that I'm at, since I'm hosting it, that gets recorded. DDA, I used to be on the DDA, so therefore I was there. Now it's more effort, but I still have, since I was on there for 10 years, I still have an interest in what's going on, so I record that. And then, because Filer and Manistee Township were funding us, we have really kind of an obligation to be reporting those, so I attend those. So that basically is what our content is and how we get it. Other questions? Oh, so we were talking about our hardware. So when I started, again, took over, we were using a piece of hardware specifically designed for public access television stations. And it's about is it a $10,000 piece of equipment? And it failed. And we had just purchased it not that much earlier, a couple of years, so it didn't last very long. And I couldn't myself justify spending that much money when right now I'm using a laptop that we already had as an organization and a $100 piece of software. So that's what we're currently using. I use my own laptop basically to do any minor video editing that needs to be done. So yes, I'll mention a little bit more about, so that schedule you saw, as you see, everything's either on the hour or half hour. But the nature of any meeting is it's a random length. So there's white space in between. So if a meeting takes 20 minutes or 50 minutes and you've got an hour, needs an hour slot, you've got 10 minutes of white space. What goes there right now is basically a video loop that is the schedule.
Are you permitted to put some type of commercials on there to raise?
We are not, think of us like PBS, so you're not allowed to have commercials.
Okay.
But you can have sponsors. So
Fine line.
It's a fine line. So sponsors aren't supposed to be promoting a product, but they can promote themselves in the context of, look at us, we're so good, we're sponsoring this. The implication is you should do business with us. So yes, there is opportunity for something like that, but I'll leave that for talking about the blueprint. So on old business, there's this need for new software and equipment, and that has been there now for a few meetings, because we had an issue. Well, the laptop that I'm running on is nearly ancient, needs to be replaced, so there's a hardware issue. But the software I was using, it was locking up fairly regularly. But about a month ago, I figured out what I was doing wrong that was causing that, and since then it has been working flawlessly. So I have solved my software problem. Is the issue that we are using an ancient laptop that should be replaced before it fails. I've had already, we used to have 2 identical laptops, and one's already failed, so I'm on the backup one, and just kind of
Is there a
waiting
specific like brand or type that you need for the laptop?
for specific.
Like a brand, like Apple,
Well,
like a Mac,
right now it's Windows. The software is Windows based, and that's why I haven't moved forward with purchasing a new laptop, because if I was going to get different software, and the software ended up being Mac based, having just bought a new Windows laptop and then, oh well, now that's the wrong piece of hardware, or investing in a laptop and then only looking at the hardware or the software that conforms to that family. So Windows software or Mac software. If it's open, choose software first and then choose the hardware that matches with it. But now that my software is working, probably would stick with Windows.
Okay.
So, any other questions? Or if not, I want to then move forward and talk about this first item under old business, which is this document. So, as I said, I've been on here about 7 years, and for most of that time, this organization has been trying to move this forward in some form or another. We started an effort prior to this. This is basically in 2018, 2019 effort. But prior to that, we were working with the Alliance for Economic Success organization that was part of our community at that time, funded by city and county. And one of the services they provided was strategic planning. And we started a process through that group. They, for a variety of reasons, ceased providing services for Manistee, and therefore we that never came to kind of a fruition. So we had some of the early meetings and kind of planning, but it never came together.
Our school uses the Right Side Design,
Yes,
and they did our whole website and
yes,
everything.
and airport uses them, and actually I contract with Right Side Design to do some of the website hosting and stuff like that. So it's one of my other sidelines. So I had asked Brandon Jensen, the principal for Right Side Design, if he would basically work with us to kind of come through and kind of pick up the pieces and try to get this to a conclusion. Which they did, and we as an organization went through a number of meetings with them, and this document is basically the outcome of that. Then it's, you've got a plan. Now, and in some ways this is a plan, but it's really the basics of a plan. Because a lot of the steps are, you need to go talk to people and find out what they want and things like that. So it was that part we were transitioning into just before COVID hit. So in talking about this, and it gets into the challenges we face as an organization, primarily from my perspective. And that is, what are we and what are we trying to be? As I've alluded to before, the traditional cable model and kind of that serialized content through, a channel, this is on this hour, that's not where the world...
Yeah, I had to say, I don't do
it's
cable,
not
I do
where
streaming.
the world... I mean, for some people it still is. Generally, by age, the older you are, the more likely you are to still consume content in that manner. But the younger you are, the less likely to, not being at all in that form. So there's the technology aspect of this. But then there's also, well, let's talk about what PEG stands for. It's an acronym encompassing three things. Public, that's kind of the public access. As I was saying earlier, on charter we really have this obligation if someone submits video to us to, play it on our channel. That's the public access piece of that. That really, the need for that really doesn't exist anymore because of YouTube. Anybody has multiple platforms, YouTube being one of them, where they can put their content and make it available to friends, neighbors, and the public in general. So that public access piece really has almost completely been wiped away by technology shifts. Education, that's the E. What role do we play in education? And that's, partly why the school hosts us, is there's a recognition that there should be some role, but what is it in this world? Unknown. Again,
well, I was at an ATP parent meeting, and they want to start recording or streaming their meetings. So I didn't know if that would be something that we'd want to participate in, but I know the parents at my school would like to, if they can't go because they need childcare or something, that they would like to be able to watch the meetings.
Yep. So, and again, over time there have been, video production classes, there have been, other things. So what is our role in that space? And then the last one is government. And that's actually the one we're probably doing most effectively, because that's where our funding has traditionally come from. So therefore, we have an obligation really to be, focusing resources in that area. And also personally, that's something that means a lot to me. Is just I have a belief that the public needs to know what their government is doing. Otherwise, when it comes to election time, how do you even know how to vote or participate in the electoral process if you don't even know what the people you're voting for, what they do? So I feel strongly on that front. Transparency in government and those things. But having said that, if you looked at our current schedule, we've probably got 8 hours this week of, city and, other meetings. The public doesn't have infinite time to be, that informed where, they're going to watch, quite frankly, quite boring meetings. It's one thing when there's a really polarizing topic, people will crowd city council chambers, they'll crowd other community to make sure they're, but that happens occasionally. Most of the routine business is actually quite boring. And when you're just broadcasting entire meetings, that exciting piece or the lucrative piece might be just 5 minutes 3/4 of the way through, but you kind of gotta watch through it all. So, and this is where I believe the traditional media has played a role in basically taking long boring meetings and turning it into a concise news article or radio segment, etc. When I started attending city council meetings, it was still when Chuck, I can't think of his, Chuck, it starts with an R. I'm gonna not remember it. But
Randall?
yeah,
Chuck
Chuck
Randall?
Randall. He was a reporter for the local radio station at the time. He would attend city council meetings, talk to people, and produce a little radio segment the next day for the news about what was going on. Radio stations today don't have budgets to have reporters. So you don't really have local news anymore on radio stations. And if you do, they're getting their news from the newspaper. So I often recall, hearing on the radio what I just read in the newspaper in the morning. We, as a community of our size, don't realize how blessed we are to still have a daily newspaper that has local news, that has reporters. Most communities our size, you've got a weekly newspaper that is mostly advertising and kind of meeting notices. It's not a lot of in-depth reporting. We are still blessed, but as technology, as we're talking about how technology impacts us, technology is impacting that industry hugely as well.
Yep.
Is that something that is going to be there much longer? I don't know.
Yeah, my students are like, newspaper, what? I have to
Right.
talk to them about it, so.
So one of the things, as we were doing this, and you'll see there is a section in here about media and our media partners, is I have this belief that people don't really want to watch meetings. They want to watch or receive the Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
So one of the things that does right now happen is, because we post these meetings up on YouTube, the News Advocate reporters, they don't go to a lot of the meetings anymore. They are watching it through our content and writing their news articles from our content. Occasionally, when something is delayed because it's not coming up right away, I'll get an email or a call saying, do you know when that's going to be there? Because I want to try to get it into this edition or something. And that is, I think, a role that we play in partnering with those organizations, because most meetings happen in the evening. Their news deadlines also are in the evening for print. It's really actually hard for them to attend a meeting, especially if it's a longer meeting. They do for some because just the importance of them, but a lot of the things that we're now providing access to through all of these different commissions, news about them would never make it into the newspaper because it just would not get ever reported. Now it can be. So, PEG, PEG, there's a lot to think about as, to what happens. At the back of this blueprint, there is a form, a content capture form. And again, pre-COVID, we were starting a process. I had received a couple targets that I was going to basically go through this form with. And the idea was that each board member would, basically spend some time working with within the community in areas that they had access. So I had actually a series of meetings with the News Advocate, one where we went through this, and then we were actually on a monthly meeting schedule until COVID hit, where we were really planning out how we could work better together, how we could provide them access to our stuff more effectively. And then I was hoping then that there would be some return on that, because what I would really like is any news article that uses what we provide, I would like there to be essentially like a byline that says provided by, or watch the full version.
Yes.
So that it links back to our website, so that we're getting, kind of a little bit known.
Yeah.
Never got to the point where I could really make that ask, because again, timing of all this has been really poor.
Well, I'm thinking even like on like the minutes and everything, like if you weren't available, because like they're available online, so be like if you miss it, watch it here and just have the website too.
Right. Yep. But our website needs updating because it's ancient, and so the other group that I did an interview with is Filer Township. Since I'm attending those to record them, basically I got on the agenda and basically kind of walked through some of that. So, there's a little bit of stuff but again, that's now realistically almost 3 years ago. It's amazing how 2 years have just disappeared through COVID. But anyway, those are the types of things that got us to where we are. So I had really intended this meeting to be introduction. So not expecting that we're going to make decisions tonight. This is about bringing the two of you up to speed, and Mark too for a little bit, because we've not really had an opportunity to go in this depth through this. And then, over the next couple meetings, really try to come up with a plan as to how we resurrect this and how we start moving forward. And again, we do have money, we do have dollars to do things. I mean, if we wanted just to promotion on Facebook and other platforms, we could do that. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do, but what are we trying? What message are we trying to get to the public? And are the assets we have the right assets? So.
Well, I feel like first we need to update the website, make sure that's correct before we send people there.
Exactly.
So.
And that was actually the last thing we were doing prior to COVID. Is the last meeting we had before, every board member was supposed to go out and look at other public access type websites and see what they liked and what they didn't like, and come back with ideas as to how we could reformulate ours. We need to pick that up again. And actually, it actually probably makes sense because we know that is going to play a role. And therefore, maybe that is something we should make a target for next meeting, is for each of us to go out and look at, just Google. I mean, there are communities around us that have, Traverse City has a fairly active public access station. Cadillac used to. I don't know what their status is anymore. Ludington's is kind of like ours, where it's basically a one-man show. The former library director kind of holds that together. But they're, larger communities have more resources and obviously have much, more substantial things. So if we take that as an action item for next meeting, and if you get that in the minutes and we send those out, that'll remind us all. That actually brings up another comment that I have, is that is ManisteeTV.com the right website destination for us. I don't know, but I do have, oh, now I'm trying to think of what it is. I'm trying to think. In the, not the Right Side Design led, but the prior effort under AES, one of the examples that was brought up was what Onekama does. So Onekama has a gentleman who basically manages essentially a community website. And it's kind of viewed by both residents and people that live all over the country that have some tie to Onekama as the place you go to get information about what's happening in Onekama. It's got a calendar there of all of local events that are happening. It's got, so one idea was, well, maybe that's what Manistee needs, is kind of, and it's somewhat maybe less about just, hour-long videos, but really it's more the community resource place. Because where do you go to find out what's going on? It's spread all over.
I agree. It's like, it is hard to figure out what's going on.
That is a hard nut to crack.
And who's going to keep updating and everything? That's like a full-time job practically.
Exactly.
Because then if things get canceled or changed, you're always going to need
Right.
somebody on call to like update it.
I mean, the Convention Visitors Bureau, they tackle part of that, but they're looking at things that are really things of interest to visitors.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't include anything that's really of interest to only residents, because you don't want to bore people with public meetings. You're not spending your vacation in Manistee to attend a city council meeting. The library has, when I was on the library board, they had expressed interest of having, because that's kind of a role they play in information access.
Mm-hmm.
But again, how do they get the information, and how do they keep it accurate, and all of those things. Anyway, the Onekama example was an interesting one, and whatever the domain is that Onekama uses, I hold the Manistee equivalent, just in case we wanted to go in that direction. I want to say it's onekama.org, but I know, because manistee.org is used by, isn't that what the school uses for email addresses and stuff? So it's not that. It's, info. It's onekama.info, I think. I'd have to go into my GoDaddy account and see what I've got. But anyway, those are, again, there's a history of little pieces of things and possibilities that we can, start pursuing that are out there. It's just having the resources to pursue it, and that we've got fresh blood and new ideas. I think this is a great opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of endless possibilities of what we can do on this committee. We just got to put our heads together and figure out where we want to go. And I think, like you said, we need a direction. We need to figure out what we want our goals to be, and then tackle them first. Yeah.
And Mark, this is a comment for you. In some ways, I've always, and I've felt this way for years, even being on the DDA, is it seems that commissions struggle too much trying to understand what their role is, as opposed to receiving direction either from city manager and staff or city council. Here's what we want you to do. I, in my role, give a update to city council once a year. And I've tried every time to ask them, what it is would you like us to do? And I get blank faces. So, and I'm not too surprised by City Council saying that, although I think it is City Council that created the directive that all of the commission meetings should be recorded. So I think they're, and again, as things change, people faces change over time, things change. But it's not only, it shouldn't be just us trying to figure it out, it should be in conjunction with our partners. And we've got a big partner at the city, the other municipalities, and then as this document lays out, a lot of other media partners, et cetera. So I mean, it's really working through all of that and distilling hopefully lots of input into what makes sense. But it shouldn't just be us in a vacuum doing it, because vacuums are really bad about getting things done correctly. You'll just create something that no one cares about. Well, that was my little talk for the evening. If you got any questions, now's a good time to ask them. But at the same time, if you think of something anytime, you can email me and I'll get back to you and try to give you an answer. So, because again, sometimes it's something like this can be like a fire hose of whoosh, all this information, and you don't even think about what questions you want to ask until you sit back and think about, what did I all hear? Oh, now I know what I want to ask about. So feel free to do that if you want to offline.
Yeah, I feel like you answered most of my questions. And
okay.
Me as well. Was this yours?
Yes.
Thanks.
Yep.
So that is the update on the strategic plan blueprinting. And then actually, I'm looking at the agenda here, /branding. So,
Are we going to do a different logo?
I mean, branding is about a lot more than just logo. But
Yeah.
Its name, its logo, its, all of that, that needs to get updated as well. As I mentioned briefly earlier, we do still have one opening on this commission. And again, historically, when we were 7 members, we generally had a representative from Filer Township, a representative from Manistee Township, and then kind of the rest were at large, generally city. But technically, anyone within the county can be on this commission. It has been a struggle to get members from Filer and Manistee Township. Most recently, Tom Steggy, who's on the Filer Township board, was participating on this kind of through COVID, and for just other reasons he didn't have the time to continue. But it's been a number of years since anyone from Manistee Township has participated. So those are areas that I would like to see more involvement. Again,
what kind of efforts have been used in the past to recruit people?
I will generally, periodically mention it at their council meetings or board meetings for the townships. But because, again, if you can get a board member who's, basically, hopefully once a year, voting to support us financially, having that direct involvement is a great feedback back, and it's also kind of a check and balance that their dollars are being invested wisely if they've got actually a say in how it's being utilized. But a lot of board members have a lot of other commitments, and this hasn't been an interest area or a priority currently for any of those individuals. So, but our most recent Manistee Township was just a resident in Manistee Township. So, again, diversity in makeup of boards is always good. Bring in different viewpoints and different ideas. So that's what that is on here for, and we can, again, talk further in the future about how we think we could either recruit or identify someone to take the 4th or 5th seat on this board. And then I already talked about the third item here, our need for software hardware. This has become less of a priority since I've now solved my problem that was causing the software to basically crash and stall. And I'm not aware of any new business, so that takes us to the end of our agenda.
Why don't you make a motion to adjourn?
Hey, what did I say? A motion to adjourn?
That would be fine.
I second it.
So we have a motion and support to adjourn.
Okay, so you want us to see what other public access websites are doing well?
Yep.
And what
So-
you don't like about them as well, because
Yep.
that's good telling points too. And then I also just put, how can we recruit more people to our committee?
And obviously, think about this document in more detail and then, absorb all of the information that I've thrown at you tonight.
Yeah, this is the Anakima's one here. It's not necessarily attractive, but I
No,
think
it's-
they've got a pretty good, at least they let you know there's a lot of options.
So it is info. So I do have manistee.info. So it is anecma.info. Now, again, this is a small thing. One of the things is, because the current one is manisteetv.com, so it has TV in it. And is TV our main focus or not? If it's not, then TV probably doesn't need to be in the name. So that's, part of that overall thought
The
process.
branding and everything.
Yep.
Who is our master website maker?
That would be a good question. I manage it. I didn't have anything to do with its creation, so I touch it, but I don't try to do anything for fear of breaking it. So. So we have a motion and support. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right,
Hi.
Meeting adjourned.
All right.
good.
Thank you, sir.